Hello. I hope you're doing well. Honestly do. I am here to confirm a few things you may have been pondering and thinking lately. I am here to let you know that you're right. Yes, we, as a species, we are facing a crisis of unprecedented scope and severity. We are. And of course, this world that we inhabit is beyond saving at this point. It's too late to save it now. It is. You were right. Now, the question is, what can or what should we do about this? The better question may be, can we save ourselves? Of course we can. I wouldn't bother with the video if it wasn't possible. We can still save ourselves and the future of our species. And I think we should definitely be trying to do both. Right now, I do. But as you can probably guess, as you may already suspect, saving ourselves, doing so, well, it's going to require something. It's going to take something from us that's not only going to be exceedingly challenging just to get people to understand and accept on a broad scale, it's going to be next to impossible for us to pull off, to achieve. To save ourselves, we're going to need to come together as soon as we can collectively as a species, and we're going to need to begin working vigorously to bring about the end of the need for any world. And if we can't pull that off, if we can't achieve that, then I do believe it is over for us in pretty much every way that matters for a person, to a human being. Now, I say that, and I'm saying all of this because it needs to become obvious and apparent for anyone, to anyone that cares about their future and the future of humanity, that we, humanity as a species, that we are on a path that leads nowhere else except directly to technological self-imprisonment. Make no mistake about it, that is our current situation, and that is the most probable future from this position. It's not extinction, it's not annihilation, it's not enslavement to intelligent machines or some other emergent intelligence. As we exist, as we stand, as we currently sit, the most likely future for us is technological self-imprisonment. In fact, we seem to be racing as fast as we can, speeding down that path toward that fate. As far as I'm aware, as far as I know, and as far as I understand, and I have looked, the only guaranteed, surefire way to avoid a pathetic future like imprisoning in ourselves, self-imprisonment, the only way to avoid that fate, that future, is to realign our individual and collective efforts with the goal of liberating every human being from the need for a world at some yet to be determined unspecified date in the future. And just in case you have an immediate recoil, opposition, rejection to this proposition, to this endeavor based on feasibility, just know that it doesn't matter at any point whether this goal is achieved practically or practically achievable. At any moment, it doesn't matter whether we can hit this goal or whether this goal is achievable. It doesn't. As long as we're working diligently, energetically, and continuously toward that objective, we will be fine. We will be. I have no doubt about this. I know this is true because I know that liberation is the only goal that is antithetical to self-imprisonment. I know that liberation is the only aim that is directly opposed to enslavement. And because of this, I know that if we're able to use liberation as humanity's guiding beacon, as our North Star, and we're able to work faithfully and emphatically and diligently toward that objective, we will see our way through this uncertain and challenging period in human history and our species development. I have no doubt about this. In the long run, we will be fine. I'm very confident about this, but if you stick around, I will make it definitive, clear why this is unequivocally our current situation and why self-imprisonment is on order for us. It's on the table in the near future. I will also explain exactly what we need to do to avoid that future in plain and simple terms. But right now is where we need to be asking a question. Why did we bother creating civilization and technology to begin with? We need to understand that to understand better why we are headed towards self-imprisonment and exactly what we need to do to avoid that fate. What is the motivation behind the creation of civilization, technology, and the progression, development and advancement of them. The motivation for creating technology and civilization and progressing them is the same motivation behind every action taken by every living thing that we know of. Every single-celled organism and every multicellular organism that we know of, including us as human beings. With every action taken, we are trying to bring ourselves to an ideal state, a subjectively ideal state that can be sustained with minimal energy expenditure, minimal action, and minimal resource deployment. We normally call that state homeostasis when it's in reference to simpler, less complex life. But that is what everything that is made of cells is aiming at. Of course, we obscure this reality with narratives, cultural, economic, social, political, religious narratives. They obscure the foundational, bedrock, and fundamental motivation behind every action taken by every living thing. But to be clear, that is why we do everything. We're trying to bring ourselves to a state where subjective rightness can be sustained efficiently and effectively, or we're trying to maintain a state that we're currently existing in that is tolerable and acceptable for the time period while we build our energy, our resources to prepare to move closer toward the ideal. We're either maintaining an acceptable state in lieu for a period of time of moving toward the ideal, or we're moving closer toward an ideal. Now, obviously, different forms of life have different needs that must be met before they can be good, before they can be homeostatic. And humanity, we seem to have the highest burden on us, the most needs, the tallest pyramid of needs. Being a human being isn't easy, but to compensate for this tall, lofty challenge, task, burden, we have evolved by far and away the greatest capacity on the entire planet for creating tools we call technology. And we use those tools, technologies, to help us meet needs and satisfy desires more effectively and efficiently than we can do so naturally and innately, thereby helping us more effectively and efficiently move closer toward homeostasis, toward goodness, toward subjective rightness, an ideal state. That's why we created civilization. We didn't do it deliberately, but best believe civilization itself is just a tool. It's a technology. It's in the Hall of Fame, without a doubt, up there with the wheel and language in terms of their ability to help us move closer toward a homeostatic existence. But they are all just technologies, tools. Technology exists to help us meet needs and satisfy desires. It helps us do so by helping us do what we can already do naturally and innately, but it helps us do it better, more effectively, more efficiently, more powerfully, more accurately, more reliably, safer, in greater comfort, with greater ease. Occasionally, if that technology is robust, capable, or powerful enough, it can help us meet needs and satisfy desires while doing what we can naturally and innately do, while also helping us unlock a degree of freedom that we don't naturally and innately possess. A good example would be locomotion. We can move from point A to point B. Most of us can without technology. Most of us can walk, run, roll, crawl, skip, jump. We don't normally need technology to do this. We don't. But using a tool called an automobile can help us move from point A to point B more effectively and efficiently than we can do so under our own power in many situations. And while using that tool, we also can unlock a degree of freedom called superhuman speed. 100+ mile per hour travel is now possible for the individual. If we want to unlock a degree of freedom called flight, we would use a different technology called a helicopter, a plane, or a rocket. This is how technology works. It's powerful to help us do whatever we want it to do. Whatever we are capable of creating it to do or making use of it to do, we can do. It's versatile, it's passive, it's neutral. And it's this passivity, this neutrality, this versatility that gives technology its power. But it's also what makes it critically important, essential really, that we have a clear intention, a focused objective, conscious awareness as to the need or the desire we're attempting to meet or satisfy when we're cultivating or utilizing technology. Now, here's where we can illuminate the issue a little bit better. We know why we create technology. We're trying to get to a subjectively ideal state that can be sustained with minimal effort, minimal energy, minimal action. But what happens when we aren't fully aware continuously as to why we're making technology and honest and right about that? And what happens when we're not fully aware on a continual basis why we're using technology and clear about that and right about that? Well, if we're not aware fully and rightly about the need, the desire that we're attempting to meet and satisfy when we cultivate and utilize technology, no matter how genius, skillful, or well-intentioned we are, almost all of our effort and energy will be constrained and directed toward fulfilling and meeting lower-ordered physiological and security-based psychological needs. That's what's going to happen almost every time unless we are clear and consciously aware to aim at a higher need. This is true even when it comes to widely adopted and advanced technologies like the iPhone and ChatGPT. Why is this? Well, this is because these lower ordered needs are powerful. They are powerful because they're directly related to, connected to, and representative of our continuation of our existence, our survival. And because they are directly related to such a important and powerful function, they attract an uneven, a disproportionate amount, or if you consider it to be right, a proportional amount of energy and attention to them. But it's an unequal and an uneven amount in relation to the rest of the needs. They need to have more focus and energy spent on them because it's more critical that these needs are met on a moment-to-moment basis for us. It's more important that the lower order needs are met on a moment-to-moment basis than the higher ordered ones. It's difficult to even address the higher ordered needs without fulfilling and satisfying the lower order ones, at least to a degree. Making matters more challenging, we live in a dynamic universe, a reality that always changes. And we always change too. And what that means is that for the rest of our life, we're going to have these lower ordered needs continually and constantly attract an unequal and an uneven amount of attention and energy. They will, because you can never perfectly meet or permanently satisfy physiological needs like security, pleasure, comfort, and ease, cognitive needs like security. They can never be permanently satisfied or perfectly met. So what they do is they effectively create a barrier or a layer of resistance in a human being. Physically, energetically, and cognitively, we have a barrier, a layer of resistance that we must overcome. And it can only be overcome through deliberate action, intentionality, consciousness, awareness, and willing. Most of us are not aware that that is essential, that we must do that on a moment-to-moment basis as often as we're able to, as often as we can. We're not aware, and we're not fully aware in that way. Of course, some people will use their energy, their resources, their time to create technologies, tools to help us meet higher order needs. Some people will, without a doubt. And some people, without a doubt, maybe you, maybe myself in certain situations, will use tools and technology to help us meet higher order needs. It's going to happen. But because of this barrier and layer of resistance, and because we collectively are not as aware of the need to overcome this deliberately as we are, that we need to wash our hands, it's not that common and constantly in our minds and our awareness that we need to do so, because it's not overwhelmingly almost everyone's, for the majority, for the most part, almost everyone's actions and energies and efforts will be constrained to servicing and meeting the lower order needs. That's why we need to have a clear, conscious intention, awareness, and an objective when we are making use of any tool or attempting to create or make a new tool. We must. The issue with us not having it is magnified. This is a big deal, but it's magnified by the fact that we never gave our world, a conscious, clear, collectively imposed and decided upon aim, objective, goal, point. We never did. We never came together in significant numbers to decide upon a point, a direction, a purpose for the world's existence, for civilization's existence and continuation. And that's a big deal. We didn't do this for technology either, but it's clear that we didn't do this for the development and progression of civilization. It's a big deal because what it means is that without a collective awareness and a collective direction or purpose for the progression and development of technology and civilization, they've both been left to advance and evolve under a phenomena through a process we call emergence. And that is why we are in trouble. It is. Emergence is simply where a new, more complex reality comes into existence over time, or a new, more complex thing forms over time as the result of less complex constituent components acting or interacting with one another. The most prominent example of emergence would be life. A cell, a single cell, is composed of non-living organelles, mitochondria, ribosomes, non-living organelles and components. Through a process that no one fully understands, through a phenomena no one fully grasps, these non-living constituent components interact and behave in a certain manner to create or allow life to emerge. This is emergence. The global economy is an emergent reality that has come into existence, into being, as a result of everyone else's individual financial transactions and economic activity. The thing to note here, the thing to take notice of, the main point to understand is that the new reality is created, comes into existence as a result of the behavior and interactions between constituent, less complex components. And that new reality takes on new behaviors, like the global economy, takes on new behaviors, new properties, new qualities that are not present in the less complex constituent components. This makes it very difficult to predict what will emerge unless we fully understand that phenomenon, that process, or have seen it happen over and over, millions, billions of times maybe. We've not had that opportunity to see billions of worlds and collective technological capabilities come into existence, emerge. So we can't really predict where we're headed as a species, where our technology is going to be in the future as a species, just by looking at an individual, a university, a company, a corporation, or a single household. We wouldn't be able to normally, ordinarily, because of the phenomenal nature of emergence. But in this situation, because we understand the motivation for creating technology, we do know where we're headed to a general description, in a general sense, not specifically, not precisely, but generally, we know where we're headed. We know where we're headed because we know why technology existed. It exists to help us move closer toward homeostasis, toward a subjectively ideal existence that can be sustained efficiently and effectively. And we also know that our efforts to move toward that ideal state are constrained, not possible to move toward that ideal state as a species collectively, because our efforts are constrained. And we know that we never gave a point to the world. And what that means is that the world, a product of the constituent components that are you and I, individual human beings, moving, trying to fulfill needs with a constraining force, keeping us focused on the lower order needs, the world has come to be what we have helped it to become. And this needs to be understood clearly so that we can understand that our constrained behavior, our constrained efforts and attempts to improve our condition, and our constrained efforts and attempts to make and use technology means that the technological capabilities we possess and the civilization we inhabit have no choice but to evolve in a constrained fashion as well. The world still exists to fulfill the same motivations and imperatives that our ancestors in prehistory came together unwittingly to help themselves meet: security, comfort, pleasure, and ease. It made sense that that's all they focused on in their day, because increasing pleasure and comfort went a long way to reducing physical and cognitive stress and improving quality of life, securing food supply, security from threats and environmental climate, exposure threats, and increasing the ease that we could attain the things we wanted and desired helped a person survive. Reducing effort and energy expenditure went a long way to improving quality of life. But because we never imposed a conscious objective, a purpose, a direction upon the world collectively, our world, through an emergent process, through a phenomenon called emergence, as a result of our constrained collective and individual activities, has evolved in really no way other than socially to a degree, but it still serves the same function and same purpose. Our technology has advanced in terms of its power and capability, but collectively, it still serves the same function and the same purpose to help us meet lower order needs. This is why we are suffering. This is why, as much as the world seems to progress, we don't find our subjective satisfaction and quality of life progressing at the same rate. But what does this mean in the long run? What does it mean ultimately? In and of itself, it may not seem like such a big deal right now. The world probably could continue this way for centuries more, thousands of years maybe, and we would not necessarily be self-imprisoned, encaged, enslaved. But over the past several years, we have become obsessed with creating, bringing into existence machine intelligences capable of mimicking or replicating human intelligence, eventually surpassing it without a doubt. That is something we will not let go now that we know that it is at least a possibility. It probably won't be the current attention-based architecture that the LLMs of today are powered by. It will probably be some other more efficient, more intuitive, and more powerful architecture in the future. But no matter what it is, whether it's attention-based architecture or some other development by Yann LeCun or someone else like that at Meta, we are not going to stop until we create genius level and superhuman level intelligences. And the issue is, with the constrained awareness and motivation, with the constrained world and a constrained motivation for the development of technology, the issue is that with these genius level and superhuman level intelligences coming into our existence and being at our disposal, we're going to move rapidly down this path toward the fate of technological self-imprisonment before anyone realizes it. We're going to move quickly. You may say that's not a big deal to me either. You may say, I'm fine with that. I don't mind living in a world that just gets better in terms of comfort and pleasure. I don't mind being more comfortable and experiencing more pleasure on a moment-to-moment basis. I don't mind feeling more secure, being more secure physically and cognitively. I would love that. And I definitely would love to do less and less. I would love a world that requires less and less from me at every moment. I wouldn't mind that. And that's sensible. That is our biological imperative. It's a powerful motivation. I understand why you say that, but I challenge you for just a few moments, 3 to 7 seconds. Ponder, contemplate what the near perfection or perfection of these lower order needs looks like. Security, comfort, pleasure, and ease. What does the near perfection of them look like? In case you haven't come to it, the near perfection or perfection of security, comfort, pleasure, and ease looks like a secure, comfortable, and effortless cage. a prison. It looks like a matrix. To illustrate, to make this more vivid and clear, to understand where we're headed, before we get to how to avoid this, it's essential, it's important that we understand exactly what it looks like to mess up, to screw up totally, to not deviate and alter course. To understand where we're headed, we just need to extrapolate where we are in this current way of existing down this path that we're on to its logical extreme. To do that, to see where we're headed, we just need to establish more clearly where we currently are at right now. And to do that, all you need to do is look around you. Ponder and view all of the tools and technology you see around you. And I am confident that you will see that most of it, if not all of it, is primarily focused on helping you do something with less effort, more precision, with greater ease, something to help you be more comfortable, something to help you reduce your energy expenditure, increase ease, reduce your effort, and increase your comfort and pleasure. That is what our world exists for. If you look out to the world further, extend it into society, culture, civilization, I think you will see that the same is true. It's harder to see in the world, once again, because we have obscured this reality with more emergent motivations called cultural, political, social, and economic motivations. But best believe, at a core level, even in domains where we wouldn't expect it to be dominant and prominent, like arts, like the arts, entertainment, and education, the motivation to increase security, pleasure, comfort, and ease is still present. It's just harder to see. You have to look deeper. But now that you know where we are, all we have to do is extrapolate where we are currently at to its logical extreme. And that looks like what? Extrapolating where we're at to its logical extreme looks like us continually, with genius level and superhuman level intelligences at our disposal, increasing comfort, security, and pleasure and ease for everyone. At some point, that means managing other people. That is a cognitive risk, threat, other people, and occasionally a physical risk and threat. We want more pleasure. We want entertainment that is ceaseless. We don't want interruption, disruption, and then we want it to be nearly cost-free, at least in a sense that we're aware of. And we want to be unburdened. We don't want to be figuring out a lot of things. We don't want to have to think. We don't want to have to challenge ourselves to find our way to a homeostatic existence, to a state where we can be good for an indefinite period of time. We don't want to go through that effort of understanding ourselves. We don't. We want to do less. We want to be unburdened. And we will do that. We will do that more and more. That is the primary motivation, unburdening ourselves. We will unburden ourselves continuously until we are so unburdened that we don't even need to think for most of the day, let alone move. Ultimately, to fulfill this, we will need to build a global infrastructure and system to provide this for us. At some point, that system and infrastructure will require us to continually meet our increasing demands. It will require us to be static, immobile. We won't be able to move around because it's much more efficient and effective to keep people secure if they're in a controlled environment and not moving around, messing with one another and putting themselves at risk. So that will be done. We will be static because it'll be much easier to provide reliable and uninterrupted security and pleasure and comfort to individuals if they're in the same place each moment of each day. At some point, we will be unburdened from all action and movement, including the need to think. And in a condition like that, the infrastructure and system we build will have to regulate us, keep us in a contented, ecstatic, sated state at every moment of our life, because we will have shifted all effort and power for keeping ourselves in that state to the world system. It will need to monitor us. It will need to provide constantly a stream of neurotransmitters, hormones, and sensory stimulation, stimulating our nervous system, inducing sensory experiences. And at any moment that it spots or notices some imbalance or incongruence, some lack or need, it will compensate and adjust and rebalance us before we even have awareness. If a thing is wrong, it will be spotted and dealt with before we are aware. And you can see in a condition like that, there's no motivation to challenge, to seek. There's no motivation to grow, no chance, no opportunity to move beyond and to become more. And collectively, our species experiences no more pressure internally or externally to evolve. All pressure will be absolved. And that's the end. It's the end because we will become a living fossil. We won't be extinct, we will be extant, but we will cease to evolve in any apparent fashion. And that's the end of us. It's the end of us because as far as we know, as long as we've existed, we have been defined by being inquisitive, never satisfied, adventurous, exploratory, creative, endeavoring, always seeking. And that will no longer be humanity. And I think that right there is a fate worse than extinction, worse than enslavement. It's worse because what it represents is that with our growing capabilities in understanding and know-how, with more powerful tools, instead of building ourselves up until we were capable of lifting ourselves high enough to take our place amongst the stars in the heavens, the cosmos, as an intelligent, evolved, and enlightened species, instead of doing that, instead of growing and developing ourselves, instead, we use these burgeoning capabilities and growing power to build a techno-mechanical womb, a tomb, so that we could climb back into it, into this artificial mother, and exist indefinitely in an embryonic state. Why? Because it's more convenient. It's easier to do than it is to grow and empower ourselves. Being dominated by some more powerful intelligence or trying and failing is more acceptable than simply being so weak that with growing power and capability, the only thing we can do, the only thing we can imagine is to think and to move no more under our own power. You may think that we have plenty of time to avoid this future. I know. But we don't. This future that I speak of may be 100 or more years away, probably a little less, but at least decades. But we don't have that much time. We have years, maybe a few decades if we're lucky, because as these burgeoning genius level and superhuman level intelligences come online and become democratized, proliferate the planet, the floor for humanity will be raised. It'll be lifted. And people that probably never thought that they would experience the pleasure, comfort, ease, and security that a modern Westerner enjoys will begin to experience that. And the Westerner will experience an enhanced level. What this means is that with each month, each week, each year, we will get ourselves more hooked, more addicted to the system, more dependent upon it, more habituated to its offerings. And this will happen rapidly. We will shift more and more to the system, more skill, more understanding, more knowledge, more ability. We will. And because we won't be smart enough to tightly regulate the proliferation and democratization of genius level intelligences, they will be in the hands of the majority of human beings. And the issue here is that people that don't know how to be good, truly good, satisfactorily, sustainably, efficiently, will have no recourse but to compensate for never being truly good by simply attempting to increase the needs that they're aware of. That's the only way they will be able to compensate for not actually ever being good, is to try to be good through more pleasure, comfort, ease, and security. At some point, with these tools at their disposal, this will mean abusing one another, managing and manipulating one another, shifting our burden onto the system, onto the infrastructure, onto other individuals to increase our cognitive and physical security, to reduce our burden and effort, to increase our pleasure and comfort. At some point, this will threaten the system that we have become habituated to, addicted to, dependent upon. And because we will have shifted so much of our skill and understanding and know-how and ability to the system, at some point in the next 10 to 20 to 30 years, we actually won't be able to do without it. We won't. We literally won't be able to live without it, at least not at a level that we will find acceptable, tolerable, worthwhile. And what that means is we will cry out for an abolishment, abolish, exclude, ban all human involvement in the world infrastructure and system. We will have to, because it will have to be a universal and complete and total ban, because anyone left with the ability to influence the system will inevitably try to bend it toward their advantage. It doesn't matter if they're bad or well-intentioned. Most of us do not know how to manage this barrier of resistance, this layer of resistance, this pressure. We don't know how to overcome that effectively. Therefore, even if we try, most of our actions will be constrained through literally lack of skill and ignorance toward the lower order needs. We will have to make it a complete ban. And once we ban human involvement in the world, once a person no longer has the ability to influence their life, once we no longer have the ability to influence the evolution and the development of civilization, we will have effectively closed, slammed shut a door on a cage, a prison, before we even acknowledge that it was being built. And that's the end. That's the end of us before it's obviously and apparently the end of us, which means we need to move quickly to understand how to avoid this. We need to first understand what the alternative path looks like. What does turning around 180 degrees from self-imprisonment look like? What we will need to do, first of all, is understand this barrier and layer of resistance. We will need to understand the motivation that we're all collectively working toward and aiming at, the goal, the endpoint, the agenda. We will need to have a deliberate and collective and conscious intention as to why we have a world and what we're doing in the world ultimately, long-term, beyond our own personal satisfaction and motivations. And once we do that, what we will have done is we will have seeded our world with a conscious intention and an objective, and we will seed the development and evolution of technology with a conscious intention and objective. And the reason that I'm stressing that, and the point that I'm making here, is that just with a little bit of intention and deliberateness, if you inject just a little bit of deliberateness into an emergent process, over time, what at first appears to be disconnected and random and chaotic actions and events can start to take on a coherent and intelligible picture, can be made into something that is desirable. Using these growing capabilities, instead of unburdening ourselves continuously, pleasuring ourselves, more comfort, seeking control of the world's resources and individuals and other aspects because we're frightened and scared. Instead of doing that, we will be using these burgeoning capabilities, these machine intelligences at the genius and superhuman level, and many other tools to empower ourselves. What we need to do is to build ourselves, strengthen ourselves. And first and foremost, we need to start working on increasing an individual's degrees of freedom in terms of being able to fulfill and satisfy and meet lower ordered needs. Right now, we depend upon the collective for lower ordered needs for the most part. We want to increase an individual's ability to provide for themselves water, shelter, food, clothing, energy, security, and many more things in the lower tier of needs. That is what we want to do. We want to empower the individual to take care of themselves and not be dependent upon an externalized framework, system, or infrastructure. And in the meantime, while we're working to bring those abilities about, we will need to cultivate more technology to help people more effectively and efficiently meet higher order needs. It's too hard right now. It's possible. I claim to be someone that has self-actualized and transcended the self, a reality that's fully possible. We'll talk about that on another video, but self-actualization, homeostasis, is more effectively and efficiently achieved and sustained once the mind itself is put in a good state, and that requires transcending the self. It's possible to self-actualize, but it's challenging. Therefore, we need to cultivate technology, tools to help us more effectively and efficiently meet higher order needs. We need tools to help us more effectively and efficiently maintain good relationships, cultivate and find new relationships, better relationships with our family, less communication issues, less miscommunication and misunderstanding, better relationships with our friends and romantic partners, We need tools to help us improve our interaction and involvement and satisfaction with our life with other human beings. We need to cultivate new tools and technology to help us more rapidly, almost instantly at some point, find the right career, outlet, work, job, hobby that is right for us. Something that will give to us as we give to the world. Something that is good for the world and good for us simultaneously. Work that reciprocally benefits the collective and the individual. We will need to use tools and technology in general, to help us understand ourselves better, accept ourselves, be good with ourselves so that we can rest and chill out and be good, especially when we've met all the lower order needs, we have good relationships and friends, and we have a good occupation. Still, many people find it challenging, never figured that out in their entire life, how to be good with who and what they are. This is how we need to progress. And once we move down this path in this fashion, you can imagine at some point in the distant future, but not that distant really, each individual being so autonomous, our descendants being so autonomous and capable that they actually have no need for a world, no need for an externalized framework or system, no need to depend upon another individual at all. And at that moment, with a person being that capable, they are free. If they choose to subordinate themselves to a collective agreement, it's neither here nor there. They will be free to do so or not do so without a single shred of degradation to their subjective quality of existence. Right now, not engaging in certain ways costs the individual. Right now, taking and not taking certain actions with the collective costs the individual severely. In this future, a person will be free to interact and involve themselves with collective or remain isolated in whatever way they see fit with no change. There will also be no ability for another to force or impose their will upon another because each will be equally capable. Maybe with a collective arrangement, a collective coordination, there will be some ability to subordinate another, but that will be unlikely because each individual will be homeostatic. Will have really no need, no gain to be had by hurting another, by exploiting another, because they are completely and totally good at all moments. This is a powerful future. But how do we get there? It's incredible, right? But how the heck do we get there from here? We get there by immediately. It's not going to happen today or tomorrow, but as soon as we can, hopefully within the next several months to several years, we begin realigning all of our efforts as a collective and as individuals with one of two objectives. On one hand, we are working diligently, passionately to increase understanding, capability, know-how in the domains of medicine, science, and technology until we are actually able to do without a world, until that's figured out. And if we're not doing that, if we're not spending our days working toward being able to help there or helping there, we are working in the other domain. And that is focused on improving the quality of life for everyone at every moment in every way that is possible. In a sense, we are working to improve the quality, the subjective satisfaction individuals have of their world until they're able to do without it. At every moment, a person will be, in this domain, working to improve everything a person touches, knows, and experiences in some measurable, perceptible way, some appreciable fashion, some appreciable manner. That is how we make it to salvation. That's how we get there. But there are some risks. There are risks, without a doubt. At every moment, the world will be getting better and better. The floor will be raised, lifting for every human being. There will still be dissatisfied people, but those numbers will dwindle rapidly. The main concerns will be sensory overload, may be one of the main concerns. The other concern is losing focus, becoming infatuated with a world that we're questioning why anybody would want to leave. Why would you want to leave a world that's this good, is what everyone will ask. Why would we ever do away with this? I love everyone that I meet. Everyone's awesome. Everything they do is awesome. Everything I do is awesome. That is a danger because at any moment we lose sight of this goal, especially with more advanced capabilities. It is very, very possible to quickly, even more rapidly than it would happen now, find ourselves to become ensnared and imprisoned. So to stay focused, we need to establish an objective that is lofty, ambitious. It'll force us to work hard, but it's achievable when you consider that we're going to have genius level and superhuman level intelligences at our disposal. We need to aim for a goal. 300 years, I think, is feasible, realistic, ambitious, but realistic. In 300 years, we should be able to do without the world. In 300 years, a person should be able to exit the solar system, exit the heliopause and the heliosphere, and enter interstellar space individually or with a group indefinitely and ideally. In 200 years, these are just markers and milestones to keep us on track, to keep us focused on progress. In 200 years, we should be able to traverse the majority of the solar system as an individual or as a group indefinitely and ideally. In 100 years, more importantly, we should be targeting the eradication of all lack, all need, all pain and suffering, in all disease, and potentially all death, except for death from severely advanced age and accidental death. This is how we find our way through. This is how we save ourselves. This is how we avoid imprisonment in a pathetic, stupid future. This was always the way. It was always the way. I came to this realization a few years ago, maybe 10, that this was always the way. Approximately 12, if I'm being honest. But I knew that this would be rejected. So I looked for other ways. Now, with these burgeoning capabilities, this is no longer the best way. This is now the only way. This was difficult to imagine as a possibility. Even science fiction didn't entertain this as a possibility very often, liberation. Normally, our best and most imaginative thinkers envisioned us extending this way of living across the solar system, the galaxy, across the heavens, the cosmos, extending hierarchies, governments, economics, lack, need, conflicts across the stars. But that's not advancement. That's just more of the same elsewhere. This is the way. It will be rejected. Be prepared for that. Even if you accept this fully, know that it will be rejected. And know why. Know that this directly assaults and undermines a person's cognitive security. It impresses upon them a need to do something, and that reduces ease, at least cognitively. And it makes them uncomfortable. And they may not immediately see how this will be a more pleasurable world in every way that they can conceive of. Many people have found themselves trapped in a tolerable and acceptable state indefinitely. They have failed or ceased to progress, moving toward the ideal. And therefore, everything that threatens the current non-ideal, substandard, lesser state that they exist in is seen as a threat to their way of life, to their existence, because it is, to a degree. It pushes them, it forces them to move forward in a place, in a domain, and in a way that they're not comfortable with. It pushes them toward a better existence, but we are not comfortable with that. We have found a way to find a minimal energy level to exist at and exist in, a state to maintain that is comfortable enough, pleasurable enough, secure enough, and easy enough. And that's why you see this layer and barrier of resistance needs to become a widespread understanding. Without that, we fail to be good ever. And we continually try to compensate by having a piece of cake, some candy, some sugar, some fast food, watching Netflix, TV, whatever, pleasuring ourselves in whatever way, trying to shift our burden, ordering something from a delivery service, shifting our burden, having somebody else do something because we paid them, and increasing our security, managing those people. Who are those threats? What's going on over there? Tell them to do this. Don't do that. Don't let them in. Change this law. Kill them. This will be rejected, but it will not be able to be rejected on a sound and logical basis. There is no argument against this. I've made sure of that. To support this, I created an entire philosophical system, 5 branches that support an ethical framework in which this is a necessity, a necessary outcome of right action. To be clear, every world is understood to be a parent that we created. And as a parent, any good parent would, they are attempting, at least trying to, raise and cultivate their children into healthy, mature, autonomous, capable, and powerful and good adults that can do without parental interference and guidance and support at some point. At least that's the goal. And if a world is not attempting to build its inhabitants, its people, into individuals that can actually do away with the need for the world at some point, whether it's even possible, at least it's trying to. If it's not trying to, then it's not a good world. It's not a world at all. It's not a world. It's a cage, a prison. And that's what we need to come to understand. That is logically intuited, probably two opposed things. It is logically seen as a result of right action. Check out that philosophy, that framework. There's an AI chatbot trained on it to facilitate understanding, but at least make one pass, one attempt to understand it without the aid of a tool. Use your own abilities at least once. Once you understand this, once you can ponder this more deeply and understand it more broadly, understand the power in it, then you can become an advocate. You can share this. And that is how we save ourselves. Right now, there's not much we can do other than understand this, become comfortable and confident with this path, settle ourselves, and then become effective communicators of this path to people that we believe are going to be receptive and aids, allies. Once this spreads far enough, then it starts to take hold. The emergent reality and phenomena that is the world and technological capabilities can be changed, can be shifted through individual action. This is how, to be clear, we gain for all at the cost of none. This is the only way, and that is a worthwhile goal. That is an enlightened goal. So stay tuned. Check out the philosophy on the website if you so choose to. Understand this as best as you can. Once you understand it, communicate it, become an advocate, and attract more allies. I will see you in another video. I do thank you for watching this one. I do. I hope you have a great day. You take care of yourself. Later.